Hey everybody, Daryl and Holly with Exquisite Exotics here. Today's video is going to be on humidity. So, we know that once you have a collection of size that you can't just keep stuff in individual enclosures anymore, and you're not keeping them necessarily as pets as you're more on the breeder side. Controlling humidity in individual enclosures gets a lot harder. And, let's be honest here, you can't check it. So you check one, you kind of learn what it looks like, what you need to do. Maybe you tend to be in part of the drier part of the country, so you use something like Reptile, and you add extra water to it to keep your humidity up. Or, on the opposite side, maybe you're in Florida where it's always super humid and you're trying to keep your humidity down. Or like us, you're here in Maryland where during the summer your humidity spikes and then it goes way too high, and then during the winter it's like ridiculously low. What if you only set that in one enclosure, one time, assume it's always the same, and then it changes throughout the year and you don't realize it? Or you forget to do your watering, or you change the amount you water. Somebody else watches your animals for a little bit because you got to go away. It's tough to control humidity inside of the enclosure. So, we don't. And that's what today's video is about, is we don't control humidity inside our enclosure. We control humidity inside the room that our reptiles are in. Now, that being said, we keep our animals on paper, so that makes it a little bit easier because we don't have to contend with the humidity from any kind of substrate. Though, if you are using a substrate, if you use a completely dry substrate, you can still control the humidity in your room and not worry about the moisture, extra moisture in your tub. Now, we do occasionally adjust humidity in our tubs. For example, when a snake's about to shed, we'll pour some water in our tubs to raise the humidity to help them shed a little bit. So we do individually control it a little bit for specific needs of an animal, like shedding is a good example. But in, for example, our crested geckos, we will actually spray them all once a day, lightly, so that they get a humidity spike, and then they come back down to the relative room humidity by the next day. So basically, their tubs are dry the next day. A little bit of water, bring up the humidity, drop it back down. So they get a humidity spike every single day. So, but controlling the room humidity for us is a much better approach than trying to control the humidity of each enclosure or each tub if you're in a rack system separately, especially for the ball pythons for us. So what we want to do is show you how we do that, because there's not a lot of videos that we've seen on how people control their room humidity. Yeah, the dehumidifiers nowadays are pretty nice. You can set a dehumidifier up and put one in your room, and we'll show you our dehumidifier. We'll turn it off so you can see it. And you can set a humidity point and say, hey, I want you to dehumidify down to this point. So that's a pretty easy one, simple. But how do you humidify your room and control it? Yeah, there are humidifiers that have, when you humidify the room to this point, but I'll be honest, both the dehumidifiers and the humidifiers, the accuracy of those we found to be pretty far off and not really good, to be honest with you. And then on top of that, over time, they seem to drift a lot. So I don't know if it's with dirt, age, but somewhere that probe or whatever they're using to measure the relative humidity in the room, it's swinging for some reason over time. So it becomes more and more inaccurate. So we wanted to show you a couple different ways to control humidity, both for those of you who have humidity too high. We'll show you what we do with our dehumidifier. For those of you who have humidity too low, we'll show you how to humidify your room and control it in a much better way. So we're going to go move to another room, and we'll be right back. Alright, so you're going to hear crickets the entire time, because this is the room that we're doing that test breeding of crickets in. So, nothing to do about that. But, so here's a dehumidifier we use. So you can see right now it's showing the relative room humidity, but it also allows you to set here what you want it to humidify down to. So if you were going to try to control your room with both a dehumidifier and a humidifier, you would set your dehumidifier to a higher point. So we keep our room at around 55% humidity. So you want to set your humidifier, like you see here, at about 60%, so that it makes sure it dehumidifies it down to 60%, so that your humidifier and dehumidifier aren't constantly fighting each other. And again, you're going to have to pay attention with these, because over time they seem to drift a little bit on what their readings are. But in general, the nicer ones, this is a GE, nicer ones seem to hold it pretty well. So I think most people have seen a dehumidifier, but it's just this kind of a set it and forget it thing. And there's a collection bucket here in the bottom, right down here, that you can watch the water level through this little clear. When it fills up, you dump it. Simple enough, right? All right, well, more importantly is the humidification process. So let's go show you that. So most of you should recognize this, a herpstat that you would normally use to control your temperature in your enclosures. So most people, what a lot of people don't realize is that herpstat actually sells, as an accessory off their website, a probe for humidity. So it looks like this, or this, because there's two plugged in here. And you can change the functionality of your herpstat to control humidity. So this is actually the current humidity in the room. The humidifier is actually running because you can see it's a little lower than that 55% we set. We turned it off for the video so you don't hear it running in the background. Anyway, so if you get a herpstat and then buy the accessories of the probe, you can set the herpstat to control the humidification in your room through a humidifier, turn it on and off. So all you need is a simple humidifier that has just a plain on and off button, something that, you know, when it's plugged in, you can keep it on, and then when you unplug it, it turns off. And you can use the herpstat then to control the humidity and turn that humidifier on and off and control your room humidity. So really, really nice function. A lot of people don't realize that herpstats even have this. Setting it up, the instructions are in the manual for the herpstat, so you don't need to, I'm not going to go through how to set it up here because the instructions exist. Sorry, it's a little out of focus there. There we go, that's better. But there are instructions for it. Just go ahead and buy yourself a herpstat and then buy the extra probes that you need. We run 2 only because that way we know if one of the probes go bad. We set alarms on them so they'll start beeping at us if the if the humidity goes too high or too low. And having 2 of them lets us know if one of the probes is going bad and we need to replace them. Though I will say they last a very, 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 very long time. That's just a redundancy, but I don't think necessary, but that's up to you what kind of risk level you're willing to take. So that's how you control the humidity, raising the humidity in your room. We showed you lowering the humidity with your dehumidifier. You can use those in conjunction if you need to do both, but let's go close this video out. So there it is, guys. Controlling humidity, how to lower it with a dehumidifier, raise it with a humidifier and a herpstat. There's accessory probes. We've talked about it a couple times in a couple different videos, but I don't think we've ever dedicated a video to showing how we actually do it. Thankfully, we typically don't have the humidity too high issue, so we don't really use the dehumidifiers unless that happens. We'll move them into the room. We don't keep them in there permanently. For us, normally we have humidity too low and we need to raise it up. So we keep the humidifiers and the herpstat running all the time in multiple reptile rooms, both our snake room and our gecko room. So that's how we control humidity, and it works really, really well for us. So as always, with everything that I ever say, multiple opinions, look up different ways. Don't take our way as gospel. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it. There are lots of ways to do the same thing. You may be perfectly fine controlling in your tubs with the substrate, and that's great. If it works for you, don't change it because of this video. If you have something that already works and you're very happy with it, I'm not saying you should do it a different way. I'm just saying this is a way if you're trying to figure out how to do it and you just don't know how. Because everybody was a beginner at some point and had to figure out their own way to do it, right? And what works for us here in Maryland, as I mentioned at the beginning, is not the same as dealing with living in a desert, like Arizona, where it's super dry, or not the same as living in Florida, where it's super humid all the time. You guys have to deal with different stuff. You probably have different ventilation holes on your racks. Like here, we use 50% ventilation on our racks from Freedom Breeder. But you can get those with different levels of holes too, based on what you do. So everybody's setup's a little different, even if you're using the exact same racks as us. Holly, and then Nad, you've been super quiet.
I have literally not spoken a word until now, I realize. So,
yeah, she's been silent.
Yeah. I have nothing. Like you know, you're very technical, so you set this up, and it was great to, you know, I mean, I know how to use a herpstat, but you work through it much better verbally.
That pretty much sums it up. That sentence right there. Have you? Are you happy with how we're set up? How about that?
I am. I will say that you can always tell when, you know, the seasons are affecting it. Winter right now, we're constantly filling the humidifier to just keep it running. Summertime, they might not even.
Might go days.
Yeah,
weeks.
You might go a day or two before it even gets all the way down, yep. And has to be refilled. Yeah. And we just fill it with, RO water that we, make ourselves to make a nice, clean, water that goes through the air. Because, breathing that too. So
it also keeps because these are ultrasonic humidifiers, it keeps the calcification from building up on the humidifiers by using the RO water too. So having RO water helps if you're going to run humidifiers. Also, if you find that, good point about filling them. If you find that you're filling them too often, maybe your humidifier it's smaller. We got big ones, actually like 2.5 gallon humidifiers. But maybe you have a smaller humidifier or a bigger area, or it's way drier, and you find you're filling it too often, you can run multiples. Here in the snake room, we actually run 2 humidifiers.
It's the biggest room that we have, and
it dries the most.
It's right near an outside door, which, you know, not an old house, but older house has
there's a slight draft.
A little bit of a draft, so it just, air escapes. And
so if you find one's not enough, don't be afraid to run a second one if you need to. Like you saw we had 2 probes on that one Herbstat too. We only one humidifier ran, but our snake room that we're in now actually has the same 2 probe system, but each one is controlling a humidifier. So we still know if either one goes bad because we'll have an alarm going off, right? That it's too high or too low. But we run 2 off that same system, so and it works really, really well. Nothing else I can tell. She's silent over there. All right, that concludes it. If you have any questions on how we do it, feel free to put them down in the comments. We always check the comments. We like interacting with you guys, so go ahead and put them down there. Or you can reach out to us if you don't want to put on Facebook comments. Our website and everything's in the description, along with Facebook and Instagram and all the different places you can contact us. And our website has a contact form, it has our email, it has all the things, all the interwebs
talk
things.
to us.
Yeah, we're lonely. Anyway,
I will make a note. Actually, you're talking about that. For some reason, Facebook Messenger for Exquisite Exotics itself is just garbage for us. We've had stuff that goes into like a spam that we didn't even know was a spam, or.
So I wouldn't say it's Messenger. So the problem is, we're going to go on a short tangent when you keep this short. Because we are a business on Facebook, you get your messages through Business Suite, not Facebook Messenger. Facebook Messenger seems to work fine.
Oh, yes.
Business Suite, which is what they use for messaging for businesses, sucks. And it has ever since it came out. They recently changed it because it used to be a different app. They changed it to another mobile app. Half the time it doesn't notify us when we have a new message. And this is on 2 separate phones. They both are Android phones, but they are not the same brand of Android phone. Yours is a Google phone, mine's an LG phone. So half the time we don't get messages at all, or one of us will get a notification. Neither of us will get a notification. Messages will go to spam that aren't spam, that are actual customers trying to reach out to us. Business Suite sucks. So if you're trying to reach us through Facebook, I highly recommend using something else. Email is honestly the best, but Instagram works fairly well too. It's less buggy, but email is the best. Google email notifications, spot on. We know as soon as we get an email, right away. Both of us do, every single time. But Facebook, your messaging system for businesses is awful. It's garbage. Fix it, please. So if you aren't hearing from us on that, we apologize. We're trying to do our best to check it like every single day, at least once. But it's hard to do when you're super, super busy and working long hours. And just to remember to check a system just to see if you have any messages rather than get a notification to check it. So apologies there for anybody who's gotten caught in Facebook land. Okay, rant over. Anything else? All right. As always, like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff, and we will see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.
Take care.